Let's get back onto this issue, though, because I've talked a lot this week about the Victorian Labor government's bid for even more draconian powers through its Emergency Powers Bill. The Australian broke a significant story early this week with eminent legal figures writing to Premier Daniel Andrews expressing alarm over the proposed laws. The group includes leading Queen's Counsel as well as retired High Court Judge Michael McHugh and former Federal Court Judges Peter Heery and Neil Young. And they called upon the upper house to amend the bill or block it. Most media recognised the significance.
Today, in a highly unusual move, 18 judges and QCs, as I said, have signed a letter against the bill, concerned that it endangers the freedoms of Victorians.
And there's an open letter signed by a group of 14 highly respected judges and lawyers, members of the legal community, warning the bill is, quote, unprecedented, excessive and open to abuse.
Nine Media's Financial Review ran with it as well, talking about QCs raising alarm. So did The Age, warning about arbitrary detention, and also the Canberra Times, saying the powers worry QCs and judges. But when it came to the ABC, we couldn't find any mention of the story. How odd, given the standing of the legal figures and the threat to civil liberties. Compare this silence to ABC coverage of, say, I don't know, retired firefighters promoting climate alarmism last year.
The group, which calls itself Emergency Leaders for Climate Action, has twice written to the government this year requesting a meeting with the Prime Minister and various other ministers.
They said they've been forced to take the matter into their own hands because of what they call the leadership vacuum left by the Morrison government.
Now, a group of former fire chiefs says that we must rethink how we manage bushfires, and they've accused the government of being asleep at the wheel, with climate change set to make fires and conditions worse.
As a spokesperson for the Emergency Leaders for Climate Change, he wrote to the Prime Minister asking for a meeting earlier this year.
This is not an ad taken out by environmentalists per se, but an ad commissioned by 23 retired fire chiefs from all over the country.
The national broadcaster goes into overdrive on climate alarmists attacking a Conservative government, but when expert voices object to draconian laws proposed by Australia's most left-wing government, the ABC muzzles itself. I keep telling you, no one is in charge at the ABC. Jack, how could they ignore such a significant story?
I mean, this is essentially what we're supposed to be doing. When there's these massive erosion of civil liberties, we need to be looking through it. We need to be looking at the wording of the legislation. We need to be looking at the justification. We need to understand what are the benefits, not just, well, can you get away with it under the law, but what are the specific benefits that come from eroding these particular civil liberties? These powers, as the people wrote in these letters, are quite extraordinary. And for the national broadcaster to bury the story and to not give it airtime at the expense of, I don't know, commissioning a story about how News Corp wrote some headlines that you don't particularly agree with. I mean, we're really in a very strange post-truth world where something which is probably the most significant story for Victorians is completely ignored.
Louise, it is extraordinary, and it's personal liberty. Again, something you'd think that the woke progressives at the ABC would support.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what if it had been a Liberal government that had rolled out this so-called Dobby bill? I mean, I'm sure that we've gone
wall-to-wall.
Wall-to-wall criticism, exactly. But as it wasn't, then they're keeping their powder dry.
Spot on, Louise. It is that obvious. It is that stark.